Hey guys, how's it going? So today I'm going to be reviewing PowerStone for the Sega Dreamcast. Now, when I first started collecting for this system, I've always heard how people say how amazing this game was. Well, I did eventually find a copy of this game, and by the way, I'm so happy to have one. I did find a copy of this game, and what did I think of it? Well, you guys are about to find out. So let's begin this review of PowerStone for the Sega Dreamcast. So the first thing that I'm going to go over is the story, and PowerStone does extremely well in this category. Unlike the other games that I have been reviewing as of yet on this channel, this is the first game that has full-blown cutscenes, and oh boy, they're very nice to look at. When you first start up the game, you're already presented with this cutscene that basically tells you a little summary of, like the story of PowerStone, and then it shows you all the cool characters and all that kind of stuff. And then what's great is that when you beat the arcade mode as a character, you actually get these cutscenes for that specific character, and they're actually quite fun to watch. I really did enjoy that. The reason is because all the characters have unique endings, and plus there are good characters and bad characters in this game. So obviously if you play as a good character, you'll get a good ending. If you get a bad character, then you'll get a bad ending, which I really do enjoy that. And it's actually very similar to another launch Sega Dreamcast game, which is Soul Calibur. Because basically all the main characters in this game are after one central object, the Power Stones, which is very similar to how all the main characters in Soul Calibur were after the Soul Edge. The thing is though, is that I'm going to give this game a higher score than for the story section compared to Soul Calibur's. The reason why is because this game does a better job of executing it. It has full-blown cutscenes to illustrate it, and the characters have unique stories and is much more relatable. And there's even actual dialogue that goes on in the cutscenes, and I really do appreciate that in their natural, original Japanese voiceovers, which I particularly enjoy that. So for that, I'm thinking about giving PowerStone a 17 out of 20 in the story section. It's not a perfect score because I don't think the story that's written in this game is like the most emotionally compelling thing I have ever, ever seen in a video game, but however, it is still pretty good enough, especially for a fighting game. So the next category that I'm going to be going over is the gameplay. Now I must say, this game has so many gameplay elements to go over. I think it'd be pretty difficult for me to describe in detail in this video because it would take me too long. So I'm going to give you guys the basic gist of the gameplay of this game. So to start off this category, I'm going to talk about the controls. Now, PowerStone has very simple and easy to use controls. You can move the character around with either the analog stick or the D-pad. The X button can be used for like a punch, the Y button is used for kick moves, and the B button is basically a combination of the punch and kick moves. And then the B button can also be used for to pick up objects, and then you can press X afterwards to either throw them or fire them. The A button can be used to make the character jump in this game, and you can there are only two characters in this game that allow you to actually double jump, which is Yami and Falcon. Now, while you're in the air, if you happen to press the Y button, you will do this diagonal kick that will hold onto your opponent. You can also do the same thing with the B button, which will allow you to do a vertical stomp kick down onto your opponent, which both of these moves are pretty useful. I use them quite a bit. Now, this game is not like a traditional fighting game where you basically try to mash all these buttons in order to execute a certain combo. It really doesn't work like that. For you see, this game is a 3D fighting arena game, where you have to really use the map to your advantage, which means that you're gonna have to be pretty good at throwing objects, firing them, doing all these kick moves, and then basically just jumping all around to try to avoid all the your opponent characters. But the main thing what makes this game special than any other 3D fighting arena game is the Power Stones. Power Stones generally just spawn anywhere at the map. At the beginning of each round, you are given one and your opponent is also given one. Basically, if you attack them in certain ways, you can make them lose their Power Stones. Certain moves will actually cause them to lose either one or two Power Stones. I'm not gonna explain every one of them because, as I mentioned before, it'll make the video too long, but trust me on this. So yes, if you attack your opponent in a certain way, you can make them lose Power Stones, and then if you happen to collect 3 of them, you become this like freaking overpowered version of your character, and you can absolutely decimate your other opponent while you're in this mode. So basically the X, Y, and B buttons get like super upgraded version attack modes of that character, and then you can put out these super powerful moves by either pressing on the right or left trigger. It is so fun to absolutely annihilate the enemy in this game, but be aware that this thing is only there for a limited time, because if you look at the basically lower part of the screen, you will notice there's a gauge that slowly depletes when you're in the powered up mode. Your attack moves drain this stuff, and if the opponent attacks you, this bar will also drain as well, and then of course it will slowly drain itself by time, so make sure that when you're in the powered up mode, you use it pretty efficiently. And another thing is that your opponent can also be in this powered up mode too once they collect 3 Power Stones. And basically it creates an interesting dynamic where you just try your best not to let your opponent get 3 Power Stones. But if they happen to do, you better start running for your life because they can also decimate your life bar too. So yeah, the Power Stones in this game create an interesting dynamic that I have yet to see from another 3D fighting game that I've played so far. And the thing is that this game has a lot of replayability too. So in the arcade mode of this game, as I mentioned before, this game already has like unique cutscenes at the once you beat the arcade mode for a character. But the thing is that you unlock different things like such as weapons and even extra characters that you can play as in this game. So it's a lot of fun to do that, and you can actually unlock certain types of game modes for, guess what? Your Sega Dreamcast VMU. That is right. I've actually done a review about this topic in a past video of mine. If you guys would like to see that, I'll put a link to that video in the description. But yes, there are actually 3 VMU games in this, VMU mini games, as I should say, that you can unlock. It's pretty awesome. I like that a lot. And it's actually very critical that you play those mini games as well, because you can unlock things like artwork and the music gallery. So yes, not only is this game replayable on the Sega Dreamcast console, it's also very replayable on the visual memory unit, which is so cool. It adds an extra dimension of gameplay that I haven't seen replicated on any other console after the Sega Dreamcast. So yes, it is really fun, and it makes PowerStone really worth it. Oh, by the way, a very cool mode that you can actually unlock in this game is actually the virtual battle mode. And what it is essentially is that you can play this game as a first-person mode. Well, technically we would consider it third-person mode, but still, it's a different camera perspective than what PowerStone normally does. It is so freaking cool to do this. The way that the gameplay and the camera movement works in this mode basically kind of reminds me of Kingdom Hearts. So yeah, if you basically want like a 60 frames per second version of Kingdom Hearts on the Sega Dreamcast, look no further than this game mode. But anyways, yeah, it's actually really fun. However, this mode does have several problems associated with it. For one, the camera, tends to review things of the map that you shouldn't be looking at. Another thing is that sometimes the camera glitches right through walls, and then also sometimes the camera doesn't exactly position itself very well so that you can see your own character very well. But I'm going to ignore all these problems with this mode because, again, this mode is unlockable. It's not the main game mode of this game. And I still think it's pretty awesome that Capcom decided to include this gameplay mode in this game, despite how broken the camera can be at times. In addition to the regular arcade mode, you can actually play in a versus mode, which I've heard that, and I've actually got to try out myself. It is so fun because the human players tend to play a little bit more differently than AI players, so it's a lot of fun to do that. And there's actually one unlockable character that you cannot play in the arcade mode, but you could play in the versus mode, which is the final version of Valgus, which is the main boss of this game. And it is so funny to do this. So the final version of Valgus is as you can probably see on the screen, it's like this huge monstrosity or whatever, and you can basically absolutely wreck the other opponent character when you're playing in the versus mode, which makes it another great reason to basically play this mode in the game. So yeah, I think it's pretty self-evident that PowerStone has a lot of great gameplay modes to play, and normally I would give a game like this a 20 out of 20. However, I'm not going to be doing that for PowerStone, and I got a good reason for that. I think the difficulty of this game is pretty unbalanced, because when you're in the arcade mode, it's such a huge difficulty spike from going from like the regular characters that you play as to the final boss character. So when you got this game in the normal difficulty settings, the AI for the normal characters is too easy, let's just say that. It tends to do really bizarre things and they usually just stand around like an idiot. It's too easy. And then when you get into the Valgus, the final boss of this game, he has a decent difficulty setting to him. Like, he's neither too easy or too hard. He's just about right. And I like that. So obviously, you know, I kind of want to make the normal characters more difficult. So I go into the settings and I try to turn it into the hardest setting that I could find. And I actually quite like the normal characters in the hardest setting. They actually become as decent as Valgus in the normal settings for the difficulty. However, the problem is when you get into Valgus, because when you turn up the difficulty settings all the way up, it becomes like super freaking difficult. Like, for some of the characters that I've tried, basically he would just shred them apart within just like a couple of seconds. It's ridiculous, especially since he is like the fastest character in this game. He throws incredibly fast and everything. Like, he is the most overpowered character in this game, and his friggin', you know, like powered up mode is also very powerful too. It's too much. So yeah, when you're basically in the arcade mode, it is so jarring to go from like the difficulty settings of like the normal characters to basically Valgus. It's so jarring for that. So that's basically the main reason why I'm not gonna give this game a 20 out of 20 in the gameplay section. I thought long and hard about this, and I think that I should, because there's no way I'm gonna detract this game so much points for basically all the amazing gameplay modes that it offers. So I think a fair score for this game should be an 18 out of 20 in the gameplay section. So the next thing that I'm going to talk about is the graphics of this game. And holy moly, does this game have great graphics. It looks absolutely excellent for a Sega Dreamcast launch game. And the thing is that this game is actually an arcade game as well. And if you look at the case of this game, it actually talks about this game being 100% true to the arcade version. And I truly believe that, because the arcade version of this game was on the Sega Naomi, which is basically an arcade version of the Sega Dreamcast. Same chips, like the same CPU and GPU, I just think it just has more RAM or something like that. So yeah, it's basically identical hardware, and it looks really good as a result of that. The characters' models in this game look pretty good, and also the maps have pretty good graphics too. It's very detailed. And remember the virtual battle mode that I talked about earlier in the gameplay section of this video? Well, that mode basically allows you to see how good this game's graphics are in better detail as well, and it is really incredible, especially for a launch Sega Dreamcast title. And to top it off, this game is running at 60 frames per second, which is awesome. Unfortunately, I'm not going to give PowerStone a full points for this category, and the reason is because this game has frame rate drops. And no, I'm not talking about the effect that occurs whenever you beat an opponent. I'm actually talking about inside of the game when you're actually playing in it. There are certain moments where this game's frame rate will dip, and it especially happens whenever you're like in the powered up mode. Some of the attack moves that you do can really make this game's frame rate shock, and it's a little bit unfortunate that that's the case. However, it's not consistently, you know, like dipping all the time. It's just with like certain things that cause the game's frame rate to drop. So yeah, so that's a little bit unfortunate, but yeah, but still, you know, it's something I have to point out, and I do have to take some points off for that. So yes, this game has amazing graphics, but because of the frame rate drops, I'm thinking the best score that I can give this game is an 18 out of 20 in the graphics department. So the next category that I'm going to be going over is art and presentation. And I think PowerStone absolutely exceeds in this category. This game is the pinnacle of what I'm talking about in terms of art and presentation. I mean, look at it. You got like all these nice cutscenes that are made with this beautifully drawn artwork of these characters. They look beautiful in this game. The fonts are, very stylish, but they're also very easy to read. The whole menu system is very easy to navigate. Man, this game is stylish as heck. It is so awesome for that. So obviously, because of all this stuff, I'm easily going to give this game a 20 out of 20 in the art and presentation category. So the last and final thing that I'm going to go over with this game is music and sound design. Now, I personally think that the music of this game is fantastic. It's incredibly varied, it's incredibly diverse, and it is very catchy as well. It's very nice to listen to, I quite like it. And one thing that I really like how the music in this game is implemented is that each one of the stages in this game has their own unique song to them. So it really helps make each stage stand out from each other. It's a really nice touch that was made by Capcom. And you can tell that the developers of this game were very proud of their music, because actually one of the modes that you can unlock in this game is actually a music select screen, where you basically can listen to each one of these stages' individual tracks on their own, which is really nice. I also think I'm very glad that Capcom kept the original Japanese voice actors for this game. They did not do any English dubbing. And as a result, the Japanese voice actors that they chose for this game are very good. They show a lot of emotion, and all that kind of stuff. And they have many different kinds of dialogue, and they're very expressive as well. So it really fits, and it really adds to basically the feeling of PowerStone. The sound effects that occur in this game are pretty good as well. It makes each one of the attacks that you do in this game have like a lot of impact to them, which is very good. So yes, it's very obvious that PowerStone does very well with its execution of music and obviously its sound effects. So I'm thinking about giving this game easily a 20 out of 20 in music and sound design. Alright, that basically wraps it up. So now it's time to see what score and what seal am I going to award PowerStone for the Sega Dreamcast. So just to recap, for the story section, I gave PowerStone a 17 out of 20. For gameplay, I gave it an 18. Graphics, I gave it an 18. Art and presentation, I gave it a 20, and music and sound design, I gave it a 20, which means that when you add it all up, PowerStone got a 93%, which means that I will be awarding PowerStone the Sega GeneCast Golden Seal of Approval. So yes, I am absolutely happy that I listened to all those people's suggestions, because yes, I absolutely love this game. I think it's one of the most underrated Capcom fighting games I have ever seen. It is incredibly fun to play, and it is really enjoyable, especially with like friends and all that kind of stuff. And it's really a shame that it was only really ported to two systems, the Sega Dreamcast and the PSP, and then that's it. No more PowerStone after that. Well, with the exception of PowerStone 2, but I'll get to there at some point. But yeah, it's sad there's no PowerStone 3. It's really a darn shame, because these games are very awesome, and I would be very happy if Capcom decided to return to this series at some point, because these games are really that awesome. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this review of PowerStone for the Sega Dreamcast, and of course I'll most certainly review PowerStone 2 at some point. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. And I know this is gonna be a couple days away from when I upload this video, but I don't freaking care. Happy New Year's, everyone. So anyways, yeah, once again, this concludes this Sega GeneCast review of PowerStone. This is the Sega GeneCast. My name is Michael, and may the dream be with you. Oh, and Capcom, make a PowerStone 3.